Hello everyone, welcome to the Low Season Travellers podcast, Insider Guides. Today we have a very special episode with Dimitris Palaiogiannis. Dimitris is the founder of Zorba Book, a company that has a passion for connecting travellers with locals through Greek gastronomy experiences. Today we talk about everything Greek cuisine. From the history of Greek food and the impact Europe has had on the modern Greek food that we know today, to what regions you can find the best pie or grilled octopus. We chat about Zorba Book and their mission, and of course get Dimitris' recommendations of the must-tries while in Greece. I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dimitris. We're very lucky to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So what I wanted to ask you about first was a little bit about you, how you got interested in cuisine, the starting of your company, Zorba Book.
Yeah, so it all started off at university. I went and I studied international tourism management. So I started getting an understanding of what tourism is and how it can benefit a country and specific destinations. And then taking into consideration the experiences I had when I was younger, I got the chance to travel around Greece and start getting an understanding of the differentiation between regions. And also I got the chance to travel abroad and appreciate Greek cuisine more. And when looking Greece, I mean, there are possibly two big industries. The first one is tourism right now. There's also shipping, and it also comes to agriculture. So I think when I wanted to start off with tourism, I had my experiences working as a tourism consultant for municipalities. I saw some gaps and I had to choose a niche. And what's better than combining food with tourism?
Nothing is better than combining food and tourism. So you said there that you had the opportunity to go abroad and that made you appreciate Greek food more. So are you saying there that you basically went abroad and then just realized that Greece do it the best?
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to quality ingredients and versatile recipes and long history of food, which we will talk about later on. And I mean, the biggest challenge was being in university in the UK, where, of course, I had my nice food temptations, mostly on the fast food end. But if we wanted to stay healthy, we had to start cooking. So that's when I started calling up my mom and my grandma and starting asking for recipes. And I think that's where I started building a closer bond with Greek food.
Yeah, mums and grandmas are two very reliable sources when you are looking for good food to eat. Absolutely.
Especially in the Greek family environment.
Yeah,
They are special
100%.
individuals.
So I wanted to ask a little bit of a tough question. In the past 10 years, Greece have been recovering from a financial recession. They've also, on top of that, had a large refugee crisis from the Middle East. I wanted to ask this because that is the Greece that we see internationally that is reported in the media. So I wanted to give you the chance today to talk about how Greek culture is truly developing in spite of this and how rich it really is despite these tough times that the country is going through.
Yeah, well, because I've prepared sort of a timeline and flashback in time, uh, just to get an understanding of how food kind of evolved in Greece, and we will see that famine crises and stuff were going on in ancient times as well, and they all had a direct impact on society, on way of life, on habits, etc. And these 10 years, of course, have been devastating for the Greek economy, for the society, for the culture. And it's been a tough journey for Greece to stand upright on its feet and be able to see the new era of Greece and look forward. So we've got, as you said, the refugee crisis, which is ongoing and is a huge problem, specifically for islands which are close to Turkey. We've also had the hit of coronavirus now, which has affected amazingly the tourism industry. Just some quick numbers now, some estimations is that we will possibly have 4.5 billion of income from tourism, when last year was around 18 billion. So you can understand how much money is driven out of the economy, and specifically when you think about islands which depend maybe even 80% of their economy depends on tourism, and specifically during 3 months.
Yeah, that's really tough. I know that that's obviously a repercussion that everyone is feeling around the world, but obviously, being in Greece after recession, being hit by coronavirus, it is devastating, and hopefully our industry does recover sooner rather than later.
Yes, and in a better way than it might than it was possibly
Hope so. I hope
before
I hope we
Corona.
can achieve that. Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about this history of Greek food. I know obviously Greece is one of the oldest cultures in the world. What is the timeline
So
that has
yeah,
happened?
so I've put together the different influences and in sort of a timeline. So food is part of our identity and also defines human life since it all began. And foodstuffs hide within them their own hidden histories, which have evolved over thousands of years. So starting off 6000 BC in the region of Thessaly, we have the passage from hunting to agriculture and from living in caves to villages. And however, farming and agriculture was tough, and we did have farmers who had worse diets than hunters, and also weather started playing a crucial role. So this had a direct impact on trade, because Greeks were forced to turn to the sea, and islanders could not survive and needed direct contact with mainland for food supplies, and but also had the chance to exchange ideas, knowledge, and habits. And take it a couple of thousand years later with the Minoan civilization, the first settlers who brought domesticated animals, seeds, and changed the Cretan landscape forever. And this is also when we see a kind of connection between food and portraying wealth for reasons of prestige. So in the Knossos Palace in Crete, they had created storehouses with these huge jars that we have seen in museums, which held olive oil, grains, pulses, honey, etc. And just to get an understanding of the increase in agriculture, these storehouses were designed for around 424 jars, which each could take up to 400 to 500 liters, enormous volumes for those times. And another connection we see is with the religion, when animal sacrifices to the gods start playing a crucial role in Greece, and there's a common cultural identity formed. And also people start coming together. So the Minoans and the Mycenaeans civilizations in palaces started creating gatherings and festives. Um, However, these did not depict what the normal people were eating. There was a lot of poverty going on, and and this was when we started seeing a fusion of foodstuffs. When shortages were evident, they started bringing in other products. So moving on after to Athens in about 1000 BC, again, there were financial problems. People were mainly eating wheat, barley, chickpeas, lentils, cabbages, cheese, olive oil, etc. And we get another understanding of how much trade had evolved. So until 500 BC, Greeks and their wine had reached areas from Crimea to Danube and from Egypt to France. And just to get an understanding, one shipwreck on the coast of France contained 10,000 amphorae, which was the ancient pots which contained wine, which was almost 300 liters of wine. Um, uh, and moving on, we come to the huge, let's say, new habit, beloved habit of Athenians, which was the symposium. And this is where men got together, friends, and they lied down on couches and enjoyed their wine, which was always mixed with water, so they wouldn't get a strong effect, and would be able to sing and do poetry and talk about politics, but not lose control. And they
Smart.
never, yes, and they never drank without eating, which again, this was something really different when I went to the UK, and you probably have this custom in Australia as well, the so-called pre-drinking, which was get as much alcohol as you can in your system
A
a couple
dangerous,
of hours,
dangerous, dangerous area.
and eating was cheating. This was not the case in Greece. And so again, at the same time, though, we see the differentiation. So at the same time, Athens had these customs, and Sparta, the famous city of Sparta, was a fighting society, and they had different understandings of food. So their meals were consisting of black broth, which was made of pig's blood, vinegar, salt, and there were Athenian rumors that Spartans couldn't cook. So there was a bit of a clash going on there. And then we move on to Alexander the Great, of course, who was the first, let's say, bridge between East and West, and he actually brought together some botanologists and some experts so they can start looking into the new kind of products he was bringing in. So Greece until then didn't have any citrus products, didn't have any peaches, pistachios, etc. The Roman, so that's a clear link with Asia and Eastern influence. Then the Romans came by, and there was influence on that, and we can see in the Ionian Islands, for example, we have a lot of Venetian influence in the gastronomy there. Christianity then comes along in the 4th century AD. Again, we have poor lack of food, famine, starvation, and that's where we start seeing again another relationship with religion, where fasting is introduced, where the rich and poor start sitting together on the table and eating, and kind of sharing what is left over comes more into society. And we've got the Byzantine period and the empire, which I mean, if we looked at a food pyramid, for example, it consisted of greens, bread, fats, meats, and olive oil. But they also had a problem because they went in 200 years from a population of 20,000 to 500,000. So you can
Wow.
understand that they had issues of how they were going to feed the people. And touching upon the fasting part, this is when the kind of a very evident fish eating society came up, because fasting days were around 170 to 180 days within a year where people couldn't eat meat, so they kind of had to find a substitute, and this was fish. However, this all ended with a mice plague, because transportations were in place, and this also brought in mice, which brought in the plague, and we had a huge catastrophe there. And then we end up with the Ottoman period, which with the cuisine we know today is the outcome of and shaped during the Ottoman period. Greece consisted back then of small rural communities, which mainly used products that were within the reach. So when you were near the sea, you had seafood. Where you had cultivated the land, you had large gardens, fruits, etc. And when you were in the mountains, you had dairy products and meat. And we move on to the so there we had the connection between breeders starting to trade with farmers. Then we had the introduction of once Columbus discovered America and Latin America, we had the import of tomatoes, peppers, corn, potatoes, which were not by that time, so there wasn't a Greek salad back then. back then, uh, and tomato sauce. I mean, it was an innovation and transformed cuisine. And then we start getting into uh, the kind of difficult years, and where we didn't see a kind of affluent cuisine and Greek cuisine being developed. We had the Greek Revolution, which was in 1821, which was devastating, and families were eating snails and hunting for just wild herbs, etc. And then, because we had the royal dynasties coming from Central Europe, they established themselves across Europe, and they didn't have. There wasn't a European cuisine. There was a French cuisine. So in Greece, the embassies started being the foodie destinations, and we start seeing receptions and aristocracy, and a lot of Greek traditional dishes start being renamed with French names and start being more aristocratic. And then to top it off, we have the first kind of modern cookbook in 1910 called the Tselemede, which kind of uh, told the Greek society to leave behind its past of poverty and rise socially and imitate French fashions, and for the middle class to imitate the upper class. So we have a clear experience of the West, and we have cream, butter, bechamel being introduced. So you can understand that there was a big mixture of what we had in the past and where we want to go, and contributed to considering Greek regional cuisines as inferior. This was and that gastronomy in Greece was inferior to the Western world. Then we have in 1922 the Asian Minor catastrophe, where 1 million people came from what we know of Turkey today to Greece, and that again sparked the whole kind of clash between one side of the Aegean, Greece, having a rather austere cuisine, limited means of ingredients, and on the other side, these people coming from what we know of Turkey today, having a really complex, multicultural cuisine. And this kind of relationship took some time to kind of settle down. And of course, after the World War II and the Civil War, regional cuisine and ethnic cuisines were undermined and rejected. There was a lot of poverty and famine, and we end up in the 60s, 70s, which is what we mostly know of Greek cuisine right now. So the Rockefeller Foundation had visited Greece and had made studies in Crete about how healthy people are, and this is where the whole concept of Mediterranean diet starts arising. And it's the same time where mass tourism starts arising as well. So you've got tavernas, which are starting to become a place of entertainment, and Greek food becoming homogeneous, gradually spreading throughout Greece, and all taverns having the exact same food, because that's what they thought tourists wanted, and that's what the new trend was. So you start seeing also pizzas and all these things. And we end up having a total of 5 to 10 boring dishes, which are seen all over the country and do not. And when you consider the rich ingredients you can find all over Greece, it is a real pity. And we come to the day where in the 1980s, Greece joined the EU, and there was a lot of help when we started seeing PDO, so protected destination origins and geographical origins. And then people started understanding that we need to adapt our needs to the environment and live in harmony with nature, and that we need to build this new Greek cuisine, which is a composition of memories, fine materials, inspiration, and willingness to create something new. And it's a real challenge, to be honest.
Wow.
So did I make it? That was around 7,000 a year.
Yeah, that
History.
was a very great, concise history of Greek cuisine. That was fantastic. Thank you very much for that. I didn't realize how much of an influence other countries had on Greek cuisine. I know, because when I think of Greek cuisine, I think, Greek yogurt, Greek feta, Greek olive oil. I feel like you guys would have been the powerhouse that was actually dominating the food in Europe. But I guess the French came and swooped on in, introducing their creamy, buttery foods.
Well, our diet continues to evolve over time, and we all participate in shaping it. And we can't change the past. I really believe things happen for a reason. And just looking at this timeline, we see that there are periods of stability, of kind of a pause, and then someone comes along, a new generation, a new kind of ideology, which changes stuff, and we see a kind of um, a development in this sense. And because these things are being discussed the last couple of 5, 6, 7 years in Greece, I really I am confident. I don't want to say I hope that the new generation will build our new agriculture system, and of course connected with tourism. That's going to be crucial.
Yeah, it will happen. I like that you don't say I hope. You are confident that it will happen, and you're at the forefront of that, Demetrius. You're working up towards it. So let's talk a little bit more about modern food now. What people are able
Yes.
to find in Greece, and obviously, Greek food is so connected to community, family. It's a way of life. I very much believe that Greek people live to eat, not eat to live. So
Yes. Yeah. Go on.
So, if you were to come to Greece now, obviously there are many different regions. You spoke about the islands and having to have fish in replacement for meat for religious reasons. If you were to come to Greece now, what kind of meals are you going to find in the different areas of Greece?
So there's a difference in, of course, destinations, and there's also a difference in seasonality, which is another major topic when talking about food and nutrition. So we've got the northern Greece and the Epirus region, which combines mountainous areas and sea. And there's where we can find a lot of local cheeses and dairy products. And we also find pies, which have played a really significant part in Greek food heritage, because it was a cheap kind of food, like pizza in Italy. And they just go out to the garden and pick up the vegetables, and you can find extraordinary pies right now in northern Greece, hundreds of different types of pies. And you also find a lot of spoon sweets. So what they do is they get their fresh fruits, and they kind of I'm not sure what the process is called. Like you make a pickle, you make a spoon sweet, which is kept in a jar, and you can eat it through anytime you like, and you can accompany it with yogurt, and and other things. So in the Aegean, we see a lot of wild goat meat, pulses, so like fava, and a lot of fresh fish, of course, and seafood appetizers, cheese again, and there are islands which also have their own honey, which is made from different types of the source is different. In the Macedonia region, we have multicultural traditions, peppers. Again, we have pulses close to places where there are lakes. And we also have a kind of the in mostly in Volos, which is not in Macedonia, it's a bit down. We've got the Tsipuradiko tradition. So it's kind of just so people can have a better understanding, it's like a tapas bar, a Greek style tapas bar, which again has a huge history. And it's you get different dishes with your tsipuro. Tsipuro is like the brother of ouzo, and it's made from grapes. And so you just order your drink, and every time a different kind of meze, a different appetizer comes with your drink.
So
And then we
you don't actually order the food. The food is paired
yes,
specifically with the drink.
exactly.
Oh,
And so every time it's something different. And that's exactly the kind of concept which we need to build upon, because it's very unique, and you get the chance in one meal to taste like 10 different recipes. And then we've also got the Peloponnese, of course, huge source of olive oil, and also very unique traditional recipes. And finally, Crete, which is, I mean, a world of its own. Huge history there as well. Wine, wild greens, exceptional local meat. So there's so much. I mean, it can facilitate a vegetarian, someone who loves meat, someone who loves fish, someone who loves small portions, someone who loves huge wedding-like feasts. So yeah, for I
accommodates
think
everyone.
yeah, I think it can actually um, everyone is welcome to Greece, and it can satisfy everyone's needs and wants and likings.
And also, like you said, very healthy. I know that the Mediterranean diet was again recently dubbed one of the healthiest diets in the world. And especially with a huge amount of olive oil too, with Greece producing so much olive oil, it's such a healthy addition to any foods.
Yeah, well, I'm unfortunately I don't have the statistics right now, but I think Greece is the number one consumer of olive oil in Europe, and we actually, I believe, um, we consume two-thirds of the olive oil which is produced in Greece. But unfortunately, again, this has changed because in the in the 80s and 70s, a lot of people started leaving the villages and moving into urban centers, and a lot of processed food started being introduced. And now we see that even in Crete, we have serious issues of obesity. And also for the Greek young generation, again, we see a lot of obesity and illnesses coming up, because again, I still don't think the whole inferior thing has faded away. And people still feel they are better off having a pizza than having a pie, a Greek traditional pie. So this needs to change.
So when you talk about pie, I know countries all have their own definition of pie. Because if you say pie in America, you're going to get pumpkin pie and all these different kinds of things. In Australia, you're talking about a meat pie with tomato sauce on top. What is a Greek pie?
So a Greek pie, can be either a very thin, crunchy layer of phyllo dough, or it can be a really like fat bread-like pie. And you can have so from kotopita, which is chicken pie, to pies with over 30 different kind of greens, to vegetable pies, to any kinds of pies. So they mostly look to spinach pie, of course. Spinach and feta pie is the classic, and
Spanakopita?
spanakopita. Exactly. You see, you know.
Oh, I love spanakopita.
Yeah,
I
that's
want to ask about spanakopita. That's where I was hoping my pie question was going to end up.
Yeah, so cheese pie and spanakopita is the major pies, and it was the mostly everyday breakfast for us students going to school. And we have also got sweet pies. So in Thessaloniki we have bougatsa, which is uh, you've got a custard cream inside that crispy phyllo dough, and most of them come in the shape of a circle, and they are cooked in open wooden ovens and brick ovens, etc.
I know that I promised you off air that I was not going to salivate during this interview, but I have broken my promise. I'm going to need to definitely cook some Greek food tonight.
And yeah, and we have solutions for that. And you have an excellent Greek diaspora in Australia. In Melbourne, there are fantastic places which I have discovered, and there are second generation Greek Australians who are doing a fantastic job to share all these things which are unknown about Greek food. So you won't find
Absolutely.
it difficult to find the products and even
Yeah.
find the ready dishes.
Yeah, the Greek culture in Melbourne is huge. We actually, Melbourne actually has the largest Greek population outside of Athens.
Exactly, that's
Yes.
true.
So I know that I'll be able to find good Greek food for my Friday night takeaway tonight.
Until travel bans are off and you will be coming with the LSD team to Greece, we've got a
Oh,
lot to do here.
oh, I'll be on your doorstep knocking and we will be cooking together. Don't you worry about that. I want your mum and grandma's recipes. So, also, food is so important, but I also want to touch on alcohol. As you said, you can go to
Yes.
a place and order alcohol. And I have experienced ouzo in my life before. I don't know if it was the best quality ouzo, but
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit more about the ouzo and the wines that Greece has to offer?
Yeah, so starting off with the Ouzo, and different islands have different kind of liqueurs, and so you've got Suma in the island of Chios, which is also I don't know if you've come across it. Have you come across mastic
I
before?
haven't, no.
Masticha. So masticha is also you can get it in an alcoholic drink, which comes as a shot, and it's good to have after your dinner. So masticha, Chios is the only place in the world where masticha grows. So the mastic tree can grow in other parts of the world, in other parts of Greece. They've tried, but only the southern part of Chios, this kind of sap comes out of the tree, these kind of tears, and is collected, and is a really unique product, and it's very beneficial for your health. So you've got a huge culture of alcohol. Tsipuro is seen as a relaxed kind of drink, and also the funny thing is, which would interest a lot of people in the Western world, is that you don't get that hangover effect. As weird as it
Wow.
sounds,
It's a big claim. It's a big
yeah,
claim.
that is a big claim, and especially if you accompany it with food and with wine. Again, yeah, we talked about thousands of years before, where we see the first wine being produced, and thankfully a lot of these ancient varieties have been kept, especially We see that in Crete. We have in Nemea in the Peloponnese another wine region, and also in northern Greece. And we can also find wine in islands, and one of the most famous ones, which because it has been branded well and has a unique story and shared it, is Santorini, where you also get that kind of different taste to the wines because of the volcanic eruption, and because all these vineyards are sitting on top of this fertile land. So a huge alcohol culture with not so much, I would say, alcoholism. Uh,
Well, because
ancient Greek.
you know that you need to eat with your alcohol. So you guys have nailed it. You have that huge alcohol culture with food. It's the perfect pairing.
Yes, and since ancient Greece, one of the most important sayings was the most important things is balance. So if you find the balance with things, I think you're on the safe side. And with wine also, this might sound a bit weird, but when we were getting together, families, and having big dinners, etc., because wine was on the table, from kids, we got the chance to get a sip each time and try it.
Ah,
So you would start to have a kind of appreciation for wine and understand it. And this, I believe, helps a lot. Once being, if you have drunk your first sip of wine at the age of 10, and of course you're not drinking a whole glass, so you won't have the effect. It's not such a big deal, which will result in problems of someone being introduced to alcohol when he's 18. You
yeah.
understand?
Yeah, the normalization of it, that there's not a taboo about it. So, when
Exactly.
you do become a teenager, you're not trying to sneak away and, steal your parents' vodka or something like that. You understand and have the respect for it already. Yeah, it's a
Exactly.
really smart way to do it. You mentioned that obviously Greece has a massive community and culture around eating food together, very much a sharing culture. And I heard a little bit about that if people do travel to Greece by themselves, that when they do sit at a restaurant, people assume that there's always going to be other people coming to join them, that food is always going to be shared. Can you give
Yes.
any tips for people that are going to Greece if they are trying to seek out this community to share food with, if they are there by themselves?
Yeah, so I believe solo traveling is going to be the next thing in Greece, and it can certainly support it. So anyone who is an artist in general, so writers, painters, content creators, it's a safe place, and you can just have the journey, and you will meet different people. And specifically if you're traveling during the low season, which is a big thing, which needs to be a big thing, you will get a different kind of approach from the locals, because they're not crazy working crazy hours, and they will be able to focus on you. And just be open to try things and to share. And it makes me really sad, and that's where I started seeing the issues, and I wanted to find solutions through Zorba Book. When I see uh, travelers coming to Greece and getting two plates on the table, so they're gonna get a Greek salad and a moussaka, which they've probably tried another 3 times. Is that what
Yeah,
you
I
do?
see why that would hurt you. That hurts me too.
Yeah, and they will get the same dishes in different places, and it's the whole thing is about sharing, is about talking, is about you walk into a Greek taverna, and you see the huge tables with people sitting on them. Of course, coronavirus has affected this, and in a group of 6 people, you might see 15 plates on the tables, and then discussions around politics start, sports, uh, their neighborhood, all these things. So it's an entertainment thing. It's really a special occasion of the day.
That's exactly what travelers want, you know, especially low season travelers. When they go to a place, they really want to be able to connect with the culture and the people and the community. And I know you believe this as well, and I personally believe it too, that it's done through food and it's done through this incredible sharing environment. And I think Greece is a real front runner in that sense, that they really embrace the people and they know that food is for sharing and that it is community and that anyone is welcome to participate in it. I just think that's just such a beautiful culture, rather than having separate tables and, you know, going out with just one other person and having your moussaka and Greek salad.
Yeah, it's good that in the villages, especially, this local pride is still there, and they want to share their story. And you will go and you will see the Greek grandmas, and you might even ask them, "Can I come in, look at your kitchen?" And she might even take you in the morning to go and milk the goats and the sheep. So the just get engaged. I mean, explore, and don't be afraid to try and connect. And you know, you won't find these crazy things you might find in other parts of the world. So you're always on the safe side. The craziest thing you might try is probably some animal intestines. So,
Yeah.
or maybe brain. So it's not that crazy. You won't have to eat weird things.
So if people are looking for experiences, especially in villages, I know that your company Zorba Book offer a lot of experiences as well. So could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So the 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 the, the problem in general with Greek tourism is that, as we said, we saw a huge increase, and we saw a huge increase of mass tourism. And unfortunately, the whole understanding and perception of tourism is mostly on a hospitality hotel approach, and not so much on a destination management approach. So you can understand that all this development of tourism has not been done on a basis of strategy and planning. And the same thing goes with food and food tourism. So I saw these things, and thankfully there are amazing, I call them diamonds around Greece, which are new companies, startups, which are starting to get into the experience sector, which I believe are the new age of travel agencies. So what Zorba Book is doing is that we are going to the specific destinations where we see the potential, and we start partnering with experience companies, which might run food tours, which might run tastings, cooking classes, but all having an authentic and unique kind of concept to them. And we also now are working on, we actually are creating our new platform right now, because Zorba Book started off 3 years ago, and I take these 3 years as a master's degree in reality. And yeah, and you know, just after seeing the models and seeing how you can implement and how you can develop kinds of tourism, and then seeing how this can be done in reality and in the ground context, let's say, and the current ideologies and beliefs. So what we're doing is we're also creating a new concept. We're going to be partnering with restaurants, so authentic taverns and restaurants with local produce. And we will also be having experiences for the travelers in these restaurants and taverns. And through their grouped experiences, they will be able to get a full understanding through one meal of the local produce and local dishes. And the final part is with suppliers and producers. This is a huge thing. Greece cannot, never had and never will have quantity. It has quality. So we can never catch up with Spain and Italy in terms of having quantity and giving it to the rest of the world. What we can do is sustain these small farmers and these small family businesses. And what Zorba Book is trying to do is open up their understanding of how they can be connected with tourism and how they can have alternative sources of income with tourism. So we had, and this has been happening only the past 5 years in Greece. So wine tasting has just come across the past 5-10 years maximum. And these farmers, because they are farmers and they're not tourism specialists, etc., they don't understand this concept. And this is what needs to start being introduced. There are people who have moved forward, but it's only private, entrepreneurship and initiatives. That's what we're trying to do for the winery, to sell its bottled wines, but make even more money out of having a visited place, and also share its story and share its brand. So this is the types of experiences we're going to have on our new platform, and we are creating, an ecosystem, because all these people we're bringing on board and businesses will be interconnected. We will create local clusters, and we are doing it at the moment. And of course, another big part is the things happening abroad. So starting from Australia, we are also creating a cluster of food bloggers, Greek Australian food bloggers, retailers, restaurants, to bring them together and to start strategically promoting and building the ground for the Australian consumers. And the same things will happen in other countries. So you will be able to find experiences, Greek food experiences, in your country as well. So
Yes.
while you're on holidays in Greece and when you're at home, that's the whole mission.
That's the perfect mix. So I want to end on this final question. I know it might be a little bit difficult, but what would be your top 3, or you can have maybe 4, meals to try if you were to come to Greece? What are your absolute favorites?
Okay. So I'm going to say the first one, which is my favorite. It's an easy pick. It's called Bekri Meze, and it has an influence, and it derives from Asia Minor, and it's called the drunk man's meze. So it's food. So that's what they were eating when they were having their drinks. It's stewed beef, and it's in tomato sauce with spices and with wine, and it's served with either French fries or pasta. And because we're keeping it Greek, we'll say chilopites, which is the Greek kind of pasta. It looks like a thin lasagna, lasagna tagliatelle. So this is the first one. The second one.
I knew this would be a hard question for
I'll
you.
give a salad. I'll give a salad. So it's Almira greens, which again, it's very unique. It's greens which look like the pine leaves, so they're like long and kind of spiky, and they are only produced 2 months a year during summer. So that makes them even more unique, and you can have them with a nice sauce and some chopped tomato. That's the second one. The third one, I have to say, Cretan meat, and it's done in a special way. It's called adikristo, and this is when I've seen it in other parts of the world. It's when you lit a fire and you kind of have chopped the meat, and you put it on each side on like a metal bar, and this allows it to slow cook for like 7 hours, 8 hours. And you can understand that this is also the kind of healthiest way of barbecuing, because all the fat drops off the meat and is not constantly dripping on the coal or fire, so you don't have those bad, let's say, steams coming out. And the last one, it has to be a pulse. So fava beans, um, uh, crushed in kind of a dip and topped with nice caramelized onions and capers and a bit of finely chopped Greek cold cut meat.
Oh wow, they are excellent.
That's a nice table with a glass
Yeah,
of
that's a
wine. I
nice
think
spread.
we're fine. Yeah.
Yeah, and end it with a shot of ouzo. It's a perfect Greek meal. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dimitris. It's been an absolute pleasure. I have really loved learning about Greek food, and once coronavirus is over, I cannot wait to come visit and try as many experiences as you will let me.
Pleasure was mine, and looking forward to see you here and try all these things together.
Thank you. Thank you again to Dimitris for joining our podcast today. It was a joy to learn about the rich history of Greek food and the importance of food in Greek culture. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to share this podcast with your friends, family, and social networks. Stay safe and healthy, keep your travel dreams alive, and now, more than ever, travel is better without the crowds.